What's up everybody, Smyers here. Today I want to show you how to make that buzzy bass sound that happens toward the end of Guess by Charli XCX and Billie Eilish. Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. So let me go ahead and play you the sound that I'm going to show you how to make. I have two layers. I don't know if there's two layers in the actual song, but to me, I felt like there were two different bass sounds going on. So let me just play you what I came up with. It's this really cool distorted bass buzzy sound. Now I have it sidechained heavily to the kick. The Kickstart I'm using to sidechain to the kick. It's pumping the sound really heavily. Let me just play the sound without the drums behind it. And I'll take off that Kickstart. And you can hear I'm just playing that buzzy sound all the way across, but you still hear that other bass sound underneath it that is playing a rhythm. And that is where I have this almost like acid bass sound. And I don't know if that was actually underneath it, if I was like hearing things, but if I just take this out and play this, take out this acid bass, play just that buzzy saw sound with the drums, then I felt like it was missing something. So that's why I think there was something underneath the that buzzy saw sound, or just something that I was not sure about. But let me just break this down now. This acid bass was pretty simple. The voicing I have on mono. Envelope 1, I don't think I changed. Envelope 2 is going to be assigned to this MG Low 24 filter. The cutoff is at 122. And got this modulation at about 23 to 24 or so. And you can also play around with that cutoff to adjust the sound. And then for the oscillators, I have the square wave on oscillator A, octave is at -3, and that just depends on like whatever your MIDI is going to be. And then the oscillator B is going to be a saw wave, the octave at -2, and just make sure that your octave on this one is just an octave above. So if you had this one at -2, then make sure this one is at -1, and that's just because of where I played it on my keyboard, where I came up with the sound I put at -3, -2. Then the randomness, I lowered that just because it's a bass sound all the way to 0, and I think these levels are the same at 75 for both of those, and a bit of soft clip, and then just cutting off this low end. Quite a lot of low end because I didn't really need that rumble in there. And the rhythm that I'm playing with that is this. Which is different from the buzzy saw. The buzzy saw sound, I don't know if it is just playing one note, or I don't know, I just have this on, what is that, quarter notes for some reason. You could probably just play one whole note all the way across like that. But for some reason I have quarter notes. So let's just go ahead and break this down. I'm going to show you how to make this kind of buzzy sound from scratch. So let me go ahead and loop this. And the drums, I was able to just extract the drums from the song using La La, which sounded pretty clean by themselves. So that's where the drums came from. Now let's open up this Serum and I'll walk you through how to create this sound. Now I'm going to turn the voicing on to mono because it's a bass sound, and let's go ahead and solo that. I don't think I'm going to touch this envelope 1 because I don't really need to. We're just holding out the notes like legato. Then take down this octave to -3, and sometimes I notice a difference. Like this default is essentially a saw wave, but sometimes I notice a difference in the sound when I use the saw wave from the basic shapes. And that's just something that I tested out, and it sounded a bit different to me when I used this one from the basic shapes. Sounded a bit closer when I use this sound. So I'm going to take the randomness down to 0. And then on my warp knob, I'm going to put on the sync. And this buzzy sound Once you understand what this sync sounds like, let's go ahead and just play this. Once you understand what sync sounds like, then you'll be able to like recognize what kind of sounds are made up with some kind of sync going on. And when I heard this sound, I immediately thought, okay, this sounds like some kind of sync turned on, and that's what I ended up actually using. So like a lot of times you could use sync like kind of weird, like maybe like a laser. Wait, let's do this. So you can play around with this sync and get some cool sounds, but for me, I think I put it at 1.57, and that does not sound great by itself, but let's go ahead and add on the oscillator B. Basic shapes, doing a saw wave again, and then raising this one up plus 4 semitones. Now you can already hear kind of the fundamentals of that sound, but the high part, this oscillator B is a bit filtered. So I'm going to go ahead and filter this off and put this around 3000 like that. And now I'm going to add on my effects. And for my effects, I will add on the multi-band compressor. Just really flatten out the sound. And now to really bring it all together, I'll add on the tube distortion, drive, and mix at 100%. And this compressor, multi-band compressor, makes a big difference. You almost hear like when I put on that tube distortion by itself, it creates these like different harmonics. And this is just something you have to play around with to kind of figure out. I was playing around with the distortion modes, and this one I was able to kind of figure that out with this tube distortion and the compressor before it kind of meshed everything together to sound like the original. And you can play around with that drive if you don't want it super crunchy. And I just added a bit of a high shelf, about 3 to 4 dB, around 3 to 4 kilohertz. And then you add on your intense sidechain compression. I just used a Kickstart, and I just sidechained it. So I did let's see, on the Kickstart, you can do audio. I just did sync, but I think you can do like audio and then if you have a kick in your original track. But just for this example, I could just use the sync option in Kickstart, which just syncs a quarter note to the DAW. And I wanted to kind of see where that kick was, because I isolated the kick when I extracted it, but I still felt like the pumping was a little bit, it wasn't as like long as the kick. So you can see that I kind of shortened it a bit. If I made it a bit longer, like I felt like it rose up a bit faster than the tail end of the kick, so that's kind of why I made this a bit shorter. But that's why I have this sidechain input as this 4 track, because that 4 track is just like the kick, and then I could see the length of the kick, and that helped me kind of figure out how long to make that volume, this shape here for the Kickstart too. So that's how you make that bass, or that's how I made the bass. I remade this bass. If you do want to grab this preset, I will put it in my Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like, and also please subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. And if you'd like to check out my Serum preset packs, head on over to store.samsmyers.com.